CEO is the one person in the organization that gets to decide what they do. And therefore, that gives a lot of flexibility, but it also gives a lot of uncertainty. What should I be working on today? And many CEOs handle that problem by just kind of coming in and taking the first thing off the queue, first thing that comes across their desk, handle their email. Inevitably, people are going to bring you problems on a regular basis. And so you can stay quite busy in the firefighter mode if you choose to do so. But that's not the best way to approach the job, but it's often the way people approach it because they don't know what the CEO should actually be doing. The challenge for most CEOs is not coming up with a strategy. A lot of them spend a lot of time on the strategy and refining the strategy. The problem's communicating that strategy in a way that causes people to change behavior and execute. And that's often what I ask CEOs, what have you done that changed the way your individual contributors in your organization are behaving on a day-to-day basis? And oftentimes they realize that most of what they do, visiting with their exec team, visiting with customers, visiting with the shareholders, visiting with the board, none of those things directly impact what the individual contributors are doing. And giving a speech on your new strategy doesn't change behavior. You have to have a way to execute that strategy, implement it, and push it down from the top of the organization to the bottom in a coherent manner to be effective. Well, just like anything, to be an expert, they say you need 10,000 hours of time in the seat. And so, I started at a young age running my own organizations, built organizations by raising money. And so I've gone through the startup process. I've taken over organizations, both public and private, that were already running and had been around for a long time. I've sat on a lot of boards. I've been in hundreds of board meetings. And so I've just had a wide range of experience to see many of the different situations that CEOs are going to face. CEOs are arguably the most important person in any organization, and the leader of the organization has so much impact on the success of the organization, and success of an organization really ends up being success of the people. I like to say great CEOs create great jobs. And there are so many organizations that fail, not because they didn't have the right product or they didn't have the right strategy, but because they didn't have the right leadership. And I think it's a skill that can be learned. And so that's really my passion, is teaching CEOs that skill that will provide them the ability to create great jobs. I started about 15 years ago trying to figure out how to teach the role of the CEO. And this Chief Executive Operating System is really the culmination of 15 years of work of training CEOs, training management teams on how to effectively run an organization. And so it takes everything I've learned in my career and puts it together and tries to put it in a systematic approach. And that's really important because if you don't have some sort of systematic approach, if you're approaching things ad hoc, you're really going to have trouble implementing something across a large organization. And so with CEOS, we've developed an operating system for your organization that can work and scale from a relatively small organization up to thousands of employees. I like to tell people the one thing that's constant is time. Elon Musk has the same number of minutes in every day that each of us does. But he's figured out a way to make those minutes as productive as possible, and therefore, have all kinds of success in his organizations. And so that's what we're trying to do with CEOS. We're trying to make sure that you have a method to utilize your time in the most effective manner possible so that you can get the productivity gains instead of feeling like you're running in quicksand and you're running really hard, but not going very far. Challenge with the CEO position is there's no way to fail gracefully, right? When, in a lot of jobs, you can kind of sneak out of the organization, find another job, or nobody really knows what happened. But when the CEO leaves, it's usually either they've reached retirement age and they can declare victory, or they're kind of carried out in a pine box, and there's not much in between. And so everyone kind of knows what happened to the CEO. Were they successful? Were they not successful? And if they weren't successful, it's often very hard to find another CEO position if you have that kind of blemish on your record. And so it's critical that CEOs are effective. And also, they don't have very long. Most boards don't wait more than 2 or 3 years with a new CEO before they're thinking about making a change if it's not moving in the right direction.